is only war.
What is up, gents? 40k Dirtbags here. We're doing a how to build Death Guard tournament list. So I'm trying to get this to you guys as soon as possible. 10th edition's right around the corner. But for all you guys that are still running Death Guard, now for the next, I would say 2-3 months, we're going to be talking about what's good in the meta currently, what you can be running as combos and kind of list strategy, stuff like that. I'm going to be posting my 3 favorite lists. We're also going to be using one of the best, the #1 Death Guard list, #1 Death Guard players list. That's going to be posted in the Discord as well, or in the description, sorry, below. So first off, I'd like to start off the video. So thank you for clicking on it. The Grey Knight how-to video did very, very well. So we're going to continue under our second army that we have that we've been playing for a while now, which is Death Guard. I have to give a shout out to all my Patreons. If you guys are new to the channel, we do have a Patreon page. I would definitely go check out my content first. And then if you like it, you can definitely subscribe and join the Dirtbag Nation. My Grandmasters, Justicars, Patreons, competitive people, hit me up in Discord if you guys are interested in upgrading and getting into that competitive scene where you want to post lists, ask questions, do tactics, all that stuff. That's kind of what the whole part of this video is really for, is to teach you guys really how to get better at the competitive scene with 40k. So today, we're going over Death Guard. It's one of my favorite armies. It's my second favorite army next to Grey Knights. But with Death Guard, they were talked about very shitty when the new update came out in Arks of Omen. I 100% disagree with most of the stuff that was said online. I still think they have a lot of play into a bunch of different armies. Obviously, the top armies that have, secondaries getting up to 100 every single game, those are going to be the ones, like the hardest ones to go against. But again, we're going to be running or talking about what you could be using for the next couple months to really hone in on practicing Death Guard before 10th edition comes out. We're also going to do a how-to tactics video, essentially, for Death Guards, kind of little tricks and tips on what to do. That's going to be the next video coming up, so make sure you hit subscribe so these actually pop up for you. And we'll kind of talk about what's coming up in the future on the channel before 10th edition comes out. So stay tuned, and we'll go over the the army. Here's the army. So Death Guard, like I said, is my second favorite, if not tied for my first favorite army. So we're going to be going over really all the basics, what you could not, fun lists, competitive lists, stuff like that. So my favorite list in Death Guard right now is Ferric, Ferryman. So Ferryman runs the cannot charge within 6 inches, and then you can add the 1 CP strat where you can make the 12 inches, and it's really good for a lot of competitive army lists out there, especially Blood Angels or Dark Angels, even Grey Knights. Like I played a Grey Knight list into Ferryman at LVO and just got fucking obliterated. So that's definitely one of my favorite ones to run for Death Guard, but also Inoxable. Inoxable is definitely probably the top one to run for the Death Guard army. But we're going to start kind of like how we did with the Grey Knight tactics. We're going to go top to bottom from HQs. You guys see the big boy. This is not the original Mortarion, but he is the 3D printed sculpt. Turned out very, very well. This is only like $40 on Etsy. So this is my proxy Mortarion. I've only run him once, which was at Goonhammer in a tournament, and that was because you can hide him behind the line of sight terrain. So if you're going to be running Mortarion, you're definitely, especially in this meta with Guard and Emperor's Children and really anything that can shoot him off the table. But Morty is a beast. But I would not be running him in the competitive scene unless you're running like a friendly RTT, or you're going to put him in reserves. So now with Arks of Omen, you can put him in reserves for free. You used to have to spend 3 CP, which I brought 3 CP for the games because I was going to put him in the reserves. So Mortarion, again, is super fun to play. He's such a cool ass model. He's 450 points, so he is hefty. He's basically a quarter of your army. But like I said, if you love him and you want to play friendly games, Mortarion definitely is a really good choice to play with Death Guard. He comes with 3 warlord traits. He knows 3 powers. He can cast 2. He can deny 3, which is very rare in the game. So he's probably one of the only casters that can deny 3 powers. And he's just a beat stick in melee. He's got a 5 Feel No Pain built in, and he's toughness 8, which is really one of the only ones that have toughness 8 in the army. So like I said, we're going to start off with the Morty because he is very, very good. If you really want to run him. Just not the best in the competitive scene. I, though, will try him out, hopefully in a couple games coming up on the channel. I think the next game I'm posting is going to be including him. That was against an Emperor's Children, so it's really good to see kind of how the shooting does against them. So definitely check out that video. But he is great, just not the best in the competitive scene. And before we continue with the video, we got to add to the 40k and beer vibe. Oh, fuck, that's mad off. That's 12%. Oh, that's so good. Okay, next, Typhus. Typhus is definitely my favorite. This is old school Typhus. This is the metal Typhus. He's so much tinier than the big version. I have the big version over there. But this guy, he's not the best. So he's expensive, really. He's mainly expensive for what he can do. He doesn't have a built-in feel no pain. He can make zombies better, which I was running him in the zombie list. What's the thing called where you can bring like 100 zombies in the list? It's all infantry. You couldn't bring any tanks. It wasn't Arks of Omen. It was the one prior. Shit, I'm drawing a blank. Basically, you can't run it anymore. They got rid of all those type of lists. But I was running him a lot because of the zombies. He basically increases the zombies' strength by 1. And there's a whole bunch of strats that you can combi with the zombies. But now that list isn't viable enough, he's not the best, but he's the Lord of Commander, so he can give full rerolls or reroll 1s within 6 inches. He's got a cool thing within 6 inches of his command phase. He can target a unit into D3 mortal wounds. So it's pretty cool for phase capping. He does suffer the -1 with his scythe to do the overhead scythe attack, but I think if they really look at him and buff him up coming up in the new edition, I think he'd be really cool because he is a standout character in the lore. So I think Typhus should definitely be looked at. But again, he's not the coolest. I definitely would bring a Lord of Contagion or a Malignant Plaguecaster or even a Demon Prince in most cases. But he's a cheeky little bugger. So it's 165 points or something. He's, like I said, pretty expensive for what he does. But he's cool. He's one of my favorite guys. The most used caster that you're going to be using for Death Guard is going to be your Malignant Plaguecaster. This guy, you'd be running 1 to 2 of them in a list. This guy is your 2-cast, basically librarian for the Plague Marines. So he can cast 2 powers. The main powers you're going to be taking on one of them is going to be Miasma and Putrid Varied something. It's +1 strength and toughness. Sorry if I get all the fucking names wrong, but +1 strength and toughness for a spell, and then -1 to hit for a unit, which you can be putting on really anybody, so even Mortarion. But he casts 2. If he gets anything over a 7 and something is within 12 inches of him in line of sight, he actually does a mortal wound. So that kind of brings me into my second topic, where you can make him a mortal wound bomb, essentially. So what he does is you put Curse of the Leper on this guy, where I think it goes off on a 6, where you roll 7 dice. Anything above their toughness, it might be equal to or above, but I think it's beating their toughness. So anything beating their toughness, they take a mortal wound. And then if you cast it over a 7, they take another mortal wound. So it does, let's say if you're going against Marines, anything on a 4 or higher, they take a mortal wound, and then you take another one on a 7+. So that's a cool little, better smite power. If you go against lower toughness people, like let's say sisters or anything that's toughness 3, anything on a 3 or higher, you do mortal wounds. It works on characters. So if you roll 7 dice against a character, if you roll over the character toughness, it'll take mortal wounds. And you combine it with the Plague Skull. So you put the Plague Skull on your Malignant Plaguecaster. You can kind of throw it out of a rhino. Let's say he goes 5, 6, 7, 8 inches out of the rhino. He can advance. Let's say he goes an extra 4 inches. That's a 12-inch advance. And then you can throw a bomb 6 inches away without line of sight. So that's an 18-inch threat range out of... 14-inch threat? 16-inch threat range? So 16-inch threat range out of the rhino to throw a bomb and do Curse of the Leper as long as they're range, and do a smite. So this guy has done so many mortal wounds just running out of a rhino and just kamikazing into an enemy character or vehicle or whatever unit you really want to kill. So you might be running 1 in almost every single list, but 2, and they're cheap. I think they're 80 points. So they're super cheap for what they do. So you kind of keep them in the backfield and either buff people from 18 inches away or kind of throw them out of a rhino and make them do a shit ton of mortal wounds. So Malignant Playcaster is definitely going to be used in a lot of your lists. Now, there's going to be a couple other characters. There's one that's not on the table right now. It's the other version of the Lord of Contagion. So Lord of Contagion I love just because he's a beat stick. You can put any of the relics or warlord traits on him and kind of make him super tanky. If you put Glooming Bloat, which is usually what Mortarion takes, anything within Contagion range can't reroll hits, wounds, or damage. So it might just be hits and wounds, I'm not sure. But with that, he's super tanky, especially gets into the middle of things. You can put the Plague Skull on him if you really want. Now, this guy also is a beast in combat with his sweep or overhead smash attacks, just doing 3 damage. Like, this guy is a baller. He looks really fucking cool too. But Lord of Contagion, he's like the beat stick if you don't want to bring Typhus, like a Psyker, and you just want to bring a regular melee dude that can fit well in with the Terminators. This could be your guy. I usually bring him if you're going to bring like Ferric Blight or a Warlord trait that you want like a character to have that wants to get into combat. You bring this guy. If you have like a Fergus Helm or whatever, you could put that on another character. But this guy's going to be getting like relics or special weapons or something you really want to get him in the face of people and just hit them really freaking hard. So Lord of Contagion's another beat stick melee Death Guard guy that you might see a lot. But this guy is mainly going to be used in the Ferryman build or the Ferric Blight build or anything like that. The Demon Prince. Now, the difference between the Demon Prince with this and the Demon Prince with Chaos is if you give this guy wings, he only moves 10 inches. So he's not going to be flying out 12, 14 inches like a Chaos Space Marine Demon Prince would be. So I usually just keep the wings off. That's 35 points that you would say. This is the metal one. This is the old school one. But he's still got, 6, 7, 8 wounds. He's toughness 6. He's got 6 attacks, damage 3, AP 3 with the sword. He's got a little claw attack as well. He's a psyker, so you can put any of the psychic powers on him. With my build, I put the helmet on this guy to extend the range by 3 inches of his auras. You could put Arch Contaminator, which is on the Mortarion, on this guy, so that way everything within 9 inches gets to reroll 1s to hit, as well as gets to reroll all wounds with a plague weapon within melee, or gets to reroll all wounds with a plague weapon if they're shooting something within 12 inches of that unit. So 9-inch aura from this guy. That's why you don't really need the wings too much on this guy, because he can still move. I think it's 8 inches, so you only get 2 extra inches with the wings. But he moves 8 inches, he can move around the building. He can't go over it, obviously, but move around the building, get into 9 inches of the unit that he really wants to get into, and then he could still, cast powers and do whatever he wants to do. So Demon Prince you're definitely going to be seeing in my list. I use him all the time. I use him, and then I use him. Those are my 2 combos. With the other build that we're going to be testing out is going to be Typhus and this guy. And the other build we're going to be testing out is 2 of these guys, the Malignant Playcasters. And then the finally 4th build we're going to be testing out is 1 of these guys and 1 to 2 of the Malignant Playcasters. So those are going to be the HQ units that you're really going to be using almost every single game. So any combo of 2, or you just bring 1 Malignant Playcaster and just go all units if you really want to do it that way. So let's continue into the troops. Let's put our HQs away. Hopefully that answered, some things. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of HQs or a lot of units you might not see in this video, but again, I'm using what is going to be used at the end of 9th going into 10th edition. 10th edition might completely change, so we'll do an updated video once 10th edition comes out. But for now, we're doing really what's been kind of used a lot. So one of the best units in the game for the point cost are our Plague Marines. Now, they got a huge update recently with all their weapons being free. I have run mine the same usually since they updated that, and I actually made all my guys WYSIWYG right when that came out. So you have a unit of 5, you can go to unit 10. You can't combat squad, which I wish you could, but usually you run a unit of 5 to 10, because if you go anything above 5, you want to get to 10 to get the double weapons. So with the HQ, you can give him a Power Fist. He already has a Demonic Blade, which I think is -1, +1 strength for the little stabby stab. So if you don't really need the power, damage 2 Power Fist, you can just do a lot of stabby weapons. Now, he can bring a plasma pistol or a plasma gun, which I just started changing. So I actually put plasma guns on all my characters or my leaders. So he's got a Power Fist and a plasma gun and a Demonic Blade. Now, he doesn't have 2 plague weapons, so he doesn't get an extra attack, which is what I've been messing up, but he still gets 3 attacks for free. So And then the plasma gun, you can shoot rapid fire 12 inches or shoot one shot 24 inches away. So that's our leader. Our second guy is going to be the blight launcher. That's free. 24 inches, strength 6, -2, 2 damage. It's just a really good plague weapon shot, killing out some Marines now. We got the flail, which is amazing now in Arks of Omen because AP2 is actually a thing again. And then he's strength 5. If you're going against somebody that's toughness 5, you go down to toughness 4, so you're wounding on 3s. You can get them +1 strength with a power, so they go up to strength 6, so you're wounding on 2s. It's a plague weapon, and it's 2 damage. So all of that in just one weapon. It gets 6 attacks per flail because he has a sword and the flail, which are both plague weapons, so they actually get an additional attack. So it goes up to 3 attacks. The flail, you double the attacks, so that's how you get up to 6 attacks with your flails. So if you're on a unit of 2 or 10, you're running 2 flails automatically. The power weapons are completely up to you. I like Meltas. I think Meltas coming out of rhinos or coming up from reserves, you can just automatically put them in within 9 or 12 inches, so that way they actually get a Melta shot. So I think Meltas are really good with Death Guard. Plasma guns are good if you can have the rerolls to 1 with your Demon Prince, Typhus, or Mortarion. That way you can overcharge and get some damage to Plasma coming out. But again, I usually just run Meltas on all my guys. And then we have the Cleaver. The Cleaver is the powerhouse of the unit. It gets 3 attacks. It's strength 8. It has -3, and then it's D6 damage. So the combo you do with the cleavers and the flail and the power fist is you kind of roll them all, and then you spend 2 CP, and if you get that against the unit, all the damage carries over. So let's say you wounded, I don't know, 3 or 4 times with 2 different cleavers. They fail 3 saves. You roll D6 damage per one. Let's say you get a 12. I don't know. Can you get, no, 10. 10 on average. So you get 10 damage of 3 dice. So that damage gets carried over. So let's say you only damage 3 times, but it's 10 damage and 3 failed saves. So that 10 damage kills 5 Marines, even though you only wounded 3 of them. With the 10 damage, it kills 3 and a third of a Terminator squad, just with 2 guys. And then your Power Fist gets carried over, and then your Flail gets carried over. So all the damage just keeps spilling over for 2 CP. So that's what's so deadly about these guys, is the Tallyman can give them +1 hit going into combat. The Ballast Putrefier can give them mortal wounds. You can spend 1 CP to do stab with the extra knife attacks. So this 5-man unit has so many different stratagems you can use on it. They're OBSEC, which is amazing. They're toughness 5. And they just have all the weapons in the world for free. So this is a 95-point troop unit. You can run, usually in my one build, I run 40 of them. I'm testing out a list with 60 of them. But you basically just put 5-mans all over the place, a couple 10-mans coming in from reserves. The coming in from reserve now is definitely making Death Guard a little bit more scarier because they're really slow. So them already coming within 9 inches of enemy units, especially Mortarion as well, they're going to get those charges off. Hopefully, if you bring 2 or 3 of them, maybe 1 to 2 of them get their charges off. So that way they're already in the opponent's territory, or if not deployment zone, coming in from reserve. So that's a good little tactic with the Plague Marines. But again, they're definitely one of the best units we have in the book, just because of their point cost and what they can bring to the table for the Death Guard army. So the next troop unit, we got the zombies, the Poxwalkers. I was running 100 of them during the one list that we can't run anymore, but they're just a cool, cheap unit. They're 50 points for 10 of them. They're fearless. They can do Spread the Sickness, which is one of our best secondaries, and you can actually make them for 1 CP. So you roll 6 dice, and on a 3+, you bring some back, which can steal objectives during the command phase. So having at least 1 10-man squad in almost every list that you build should be mandatory. You can put them up to 20-man units. So if they can kind of like spread out or block the backfield, I usually use them for blocking out deep strike or getting onto a center objective that you don't want to throw Plague Marines out on. So let's say they start off, they move out 4 inches because they're right behind a wall. They just move out 4 inches and then they kind of section off like that. Then they could do spread turn 1, and then you don't care what happens after that. They basically made their 50 points back. If 1 or 2 of them survive, let's say you kill the guys off the objective and you still have 2 guys behind a building, you spend 1 CP and make them back on the objective to get 8 to 12 points on turn 2. So that's a good little strategy, which we'll talk about in the strategy video. But yeah, they're really good for the point cost. They're just like cultists, except they're fearless. They have a 6-up feel no pain, so they don't just straight up die to random pot shots. They do have a chance to make some saves. So they're a cool little cheap unit. Next to Typhus, or within 6 inches of Typhus, they go up to strength 4. So instead of being strength 3, they're actually strength 4, so they can do something to Marines. They have 2 attacks base, which sure, why not? And I don't know if the strat, if that went away, but there used to be a strat where you can take them off the table and bring them back onto the table, or you can do mortal wounds on 6s to hit. And I think the thing that went away was they got to get full rerolls, so that way you can combo the mortal wounds and full rerolls. But again, they took a lot of stuff away from the what was it called? The ruins. Whatever, the list that you can't do anymore. Everybody watching this knows what the fuck I'm talking about, but you can't do them anymore. So really, I just bring them as cheap fodder to block charge lanes, get the spread the sickness 1 turn, do an action for that one mission that they can only do actions on. They can't do actions otherwise, but the one action where you have to do the mission on the objectives, they can do that. So wait, no, I don't know if they can do that because it says can't do actions. But then it says anything can do an action, like a rhino. So I don't know. We got to look into that. Somebody let me know. But yeah, so those are really good troops. Those are really our only 2 troops on the list. But let's continue into the infantry because there's still a lot of good OBSEC infantry units that we could bring in Death Guard. So let's put these guys aside. Wow, we have like 40 of them. They're all over here. We're kind of waiting for a battle to come out. All right, so then we got these guys. These are our Death Shroud Determinators. They're so fucking cool. They have sights. Like anything that has a sight in Death Guard is just baller. I painted these guys up myself. You can't really see. Kinda, not really. Lighting is terrible. But they got the standard green, purple cloaks, blue top things, black on the spikes, wash everywhere. And then really like bright ass turquoise purple for all the tentacles. So these guys were my favorite coming back into Death Guard. They could do a sweep attack, which triples or doubles their attacks. So each of them has 4 attacks each. They go up to 8 attacks on their sweep attacks. You can combine them with a lot of different characters. They hit on 2s, so they actually hit on 3s with their overhead smash, which does 2 damage. So they have 4 attacks each. The leader has 5. So if you have a unit of 3 of them, this guy will get 10 attacks. These 2 will get 8 attacks. So it's basically 18 attacks, just kind of little sweep attacks. And then the Ballast Putrefier giving them the mortal wounds on 6s, and then full rerolls from either our Arch Contaminator from him or him. Basically them just mowing down people with mortal wounds, getting reroll 1s to hit, hitting on 2s. So rerolling 1s to hit, and then on 6s to doing mortals with full rerolls. So that's a really, really good combo with like these 3. This guy can be 9 inches away. This guy just has to give it to him before they charge. They charge in, they either do a shit ton of sweep attacks or overhead smashes, which are going to do 2 damage, -3, I believe, and still doing the mortal wounds while full rerolling. So the difference that they made recently was these guys are OBSEC and Terminators are OBSEC. So just being able to have OBSEC in almost everything in your list is super clutch. These guys are expensive. They're 50 points, but they have 3 wounds, toughness 5, -1 damage. I forgot. Everything over there has -1 damage, but the zombies only have 1 wound, so they're just going to die. But the Plague Marines have -1 damage. All the characters have -1 damage, and these guys have -1 damage. So anything damage 3, they're actually going to live for 1 extra attack because of that. So that's what makes them so tanky. With Armor Content, prior, we're not going to mention Armor Content. Armor Content made them a little bit tankier, but with that going away, they're still fucking tanky. They can deep strike in. They have flamers, auto-hitting pistol flamers. They're pistols, but they're auto-hitting, so they can shoot them in combat. They're plague weapons, so you can reroll 1s to the wound roll, or if they're within 9 inches of our Arch Contaminator, they get full rerolls. You can actually extend that by 6 inches with CP, so you can deep strike them in. They get a 12-inch plus extra 6, so 18-inch threat range to kill some like chaff units in the back, which helps with fleeing vectors by killing people with Plague Marines or Plague weapons. So that little tactic is actually really good. And also they have a 4-up in bone save, which not a lot of people have in this game. So they're T5, 2-up save, 4-up in bone save, -1 damage. They have auto-hitting flamers, which is D6, and then the leader has 2d6, and then they have sweep attack, or like, this unit is just so cool. And you can combine it with a lot of different stuff. They could die because there's only 3 of them, but still they're tanky, so keep them behind cover, only charging whatever they can charge, put them into deep strike, put them in the backfield, put them in behind cover, put them in cover, so that way they get the cover save. But these guys are just super, super cool units and definitely should be used a lot. You can bring a shit ton of them. They go up to units of 6, or you can just bring units of 3 or 4 or 5, or if you want to get them all the way up to 6, you can put them in units of 6. So really, really cool unit, Death Shroud. One of my favorite models in the game, in the Death Guard thing. Now let's go to the next unit, which is OBSEC. It's the Blight Lord Terminators. These guys changed recently, so I definitely started running them a little bit more. Combining them with the Tallyman, with the same thing, with the Mortal Wounds, with the rerolling wounds and ones from the Demon Prince. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can combi with these guys, but it's the same stat line as the Death Shroud. So they're 2 up, 4 up invuln, 5 up toughness, -1 damage. You can put spells on them like everybody else, make them a little bit more tankier, and you can run them in a unit of 10. So the difference between these guys and how they were before is all their weapons are free. So they all have bolters. So they all have combi bolters. Some of them can get rid of their combi bolters for different weapons. What I've been loading them out with is everything you could possibly bring with them. So we'll do 2 Plague Spewers, which are plague weapons. They're strength 5, -1 damage, range 12. So they would get the rerolls, and they count for fleeing vectors, which is really why we're bringing this list. 2 Blight Launchers with that, because they're 24 inches, strength 6, -2 damage. Blight weapons, so they're going to count for fleeing vectors, and they get the rerolls and shit. We have combi meltas, so 2 combi meltas. We have 2 combi plasmas, and then I believe we have 2 flails. So that's 2 flails, 2 combi plasmas, 2 combi meltas, 2 blight launchers, and then 2 heavy plague spewers. So those are the 10 different models. But it's unit 10, so you can bring 2 of everything. So just as much shit as you could possibly put on these guys. You're going to overcharge the plasma, so that way you're within 9 inches of the reroll ones. So they're going to be strength 8, -3, 2 damage, rerolls ones. You have the combi meltas, which are going to be, meltas. You have the blight launchers, you have the blight plague spewers, and then you have the bolters. So you can shoot 2 combi bolters, that's 4 shots. 2 combi plasmas, that's another 4 shots. And that's really it. So you only have 8 shots that you could turn into blight weapons, but for 1 CP, it's not really worth 8 shots. I'd rather just use the actual plague weapons to kill some people. And I forgot to mention, the Termies have a 1 CP strat that can kind of fuck with people's leadership. So a good combo is the spawn. That's why I brought the spawn out, because you don't see a ton of spawn, but if you have 1 spawn on your list, which is like 21 points, he has a -1 leadership aura, but these guys have a 1 CP strat, which gets -4 leadership if they kill 1 model. Now, what you could do, again, in the tactic video, this guy, let's say he splits his attacks. 2 attacks into one, 3 attacks into the other, split them up. Let's say 1 kills 1 model in that unit, 1 kills another model in that unit. You can spend 1 CP, and if that guy killed a model, those units are -4 leadership. I might have to read the wording again, but I think that's how you do it. Or you pick one of the 2 units that's -4 leadership. I don't know, I got to read it again. But you have to choose 1 model, and that model, if they killed it, is -4 leadership. So -4 + 1. That's -5. Let's say you kill 1 guy, that's -6. So if they started at leadership 10, they're already down to leadership 4 before you kill anybody else. So let's say you kill 4 or 5 guys. They need a 1 to survive, which with fleeing vectors, if they fail morale, you get 2 points. If they fail morale because of a plague weapon, which is everything, 3 points. So if you killed 7 guys, and then you killed 7 guys with a plague weapon, and then you had a guy flee, and then you had a guy flee because of a plague weapon. So you basically can get 6 points in 1 battle round. If it's the opponent's battle round, and then they charge you and you kill people in melee and you make them flee, you basically get 9 to 12 points in 1 full turn, which is fucking insane. I don't know what people are thinking about Death Guard. Death Guard are really, really good right now. So that was the Terminators. They're OBSEC. They're still slow, the speed 5, but again, you can deep strike them in. You can deep strike them even in your deployment zone, your backfield, as long as they're within 9 inches of your Arch Contaminator, as well as within 9 inches of your Demon Prince to get the reroll ones. So you don't get the +1 to hit with the Tallyman, putting that on them instead. But at least if you want them to deep strike in, because you can't start them on the table because there's not a lot of room, you can basically just coming in turn 2, have them be within all the rerolls, and then just shoot something off the table and then charge something else. So they come down, and then you can put defensive buffs on them with the powers as well. So they're still a really, really good unit. They're 400 points for 10 models, 40 points a model. That's not bad. For 10 Blightlord, Death Guard, Terminators, it's actually pretty good. Okay, let's go over some of the combinations with the characters. So I already mentioned this guy a shit ton of times. The Bilish Putrefier is definitely one of my favorite characters. Even before, like when I first started running Death Guard, I was like, why is this guy not in every list? This guy does so much for the army. He combis very well with the Plague Marines. He combis really well with guys that have a lot of attacks that are plague weapons. So this guy, now people write in the comments all the time about this guy's ability, where he can target a unit in the fight phase and target people in the charge phase. So how it works is this guy, let's say this unit is charging. They're within 6 inches of this guy, and this unit's charging within 6 inches of this guy. So this unit charges up. Let's say they charge over here. They're still within 6 inches, and this unit charges, I don't know, East Bumblefuck out there. So this unit at the beginning of the charge phase got the mortal wounds. So anything on a 6 to wound does a mortal wound in addition to damage. So if they get the full reroll aura from the Arch Contaminator, they're going to do a shit ton of damage. Now, in the opponent's fight phase, at the beginning of the fight phase, this guy can target something within 6 inches, core unit. They then can get the same thing. So that unit that charged all the way into East Bumblefuck gets the mortal wounds still, because it's not it comes all the way back around to the next phase. So they get the mortal wounds again, and then these new guys get the mortal wounds because it's the opponent's fight phase. It says target a unit in the charge phase or fight phase. So charge phase, now fight phase. So you could basically combi it up into 2 different units as long as they're still within 6 inches of this guy. So this guy is super good. Sometimes people put the Arch Contaminator on him just because he's going to be in the fray most of the game. And then they can also do the helm. Like instead of putting the helm, everything on this guy, you just put it on this guy. He's a lot less tankier, but you got to be more protective of him. You can put him in a rhino. You can put him behind a whole unit. You can put him behind zombies, whatever you got to do. But this guy does work with the mortal wounds. He also, anytime somebody's within 6 inches of him, which I believe if you have the helm on him, it extends it to 9 inches. So it extends any aura that's on the character. So he makes plague blight weapons, the plague grenades, blight grenades, blight grenades, -1, 2 damage. So if anything is within 6 or 9 inches of him and they throw a blight grenade, that blight grenade is -1 damage, or -1 AP, 2 damage. So it's basically just marine killer blight grenades, which is D6. He also has a stratagem that you can do with the grenades as well if you combi it. The one CP strat they're going to be mainly running on this guy is basically you target 3 models, and those 3 models can turn their blight grenades into pistol 6s. So how that works is, let's say this guy, the flail guy, and the cleaver guy, right? So 3 random dudes that are within 6 inches or 9 inches of this guy can turn their blight grenades into pistol 6s. So again, combi everything. So they're within the rerolls, so they get reroll 1s. If they already have the +1 to hit from the Tallyman, they hit on 2s. So, and they're blight grenades. So they do 18 shots out of 3 different guys. It doesn't have to be the same unit. It could be 3 random guys that are hopefully within 6 inches of this guy, but they get 6 shots. So it's 18 shots. They're same stat profile. So they're strength 4, -1, 2 damage if they're within the range of this guy. So the special thing about that is if they're in combat, it's auto hitting. So if they're stuck in combat or they're already in combat, again, it's in the shooting phase. So they get to basically pick 3 guys that are in combat, and they just have auto hitting 18 shots, -1/2 damage. Like that'll kill a lot of shit as long as they're within range of this guy. So it's really cool to get people out of combat by killing whatever's left in it, and then they can kind of move out and do whatever they got to do, or they just kill like characters. pretty cool and reliable. So that combo is such a good thing. Now make sure that people have blight grenades. I don't think these Terminators have blight grenades. These guys definitely don't have blight grenades. I think Typhus does have a blight grenade, which is cool. I just read the other day. So make sure that they have a keyword that they have the blight grenades for the weapons. I just know the Plague Marines are the main one that can have the blight grenades. He's got a special grenade, and then Mortarion has a special grenade, so it doesn't work on them. But anything that has blight grenade, that'll work on. So this guy, definitely worth the points in almost every single list. You can give him a little bit more tankier relics, like the +1 wound can only wound him on 4s. Instead of extending his range, you can do something like that. But very, very good with the Putrefier. I think he's definitely worth it. Tallyman, you're going to see him in almost every single list. He's a cool model. He's got a plasma. I think it's on this model. I don't know if it came with it or not, but he's usually in the back. For the first turn or two, he's going to be buffing a unit. So he can be buffing the Terminators, buffing the Plague Marines, buffing the Contemptor Dread. So the little combo that you do with the Tallyman is you can bring a Contemptor Dread. Yes, it's 1 CP to bring a Contemptor Dread, but you can still bring the Volkite weapons on him. You can actually bring heavy bolters on this guy now because AP1 is actually a thing. You can spend 1 CP to turn it into Plague Weapon bolt gun. So that way the Tallyman gives the core unit +1 to hit, so he hits on 2s, shooting pretty far away. You get reroll 1s because it's core within the Demon Prince range. You can also put the Tally Tollkeeper on the Tallyman, which actually has exploding 6s. So he hits on 2s, exploding 6s, reroll 1s, turn it into a plague weapon, so it helps with fleeing vectors. So that way if he kills people with plague weapons, it counts for the tally, and then if they run, it counts for fleeing vectors. So this little combo with the dude, 1 CP, you can put the missile on it. It doesn't turn the missile into blade weapons, but it's an extra 25 points. And then the Tallyman just kind of stayed together for the rest of the game, all the way in the back. But if you don't want to run the Contemptor, you just kind of let him buff first or 2 turns because it's only within 6 inches. I wish you could buff tanks or let them reroll or something. But every phase, your turn and their turn, you have a chance to get a CP. So let's say you don't go first, you get to roll two dice. On a 7+, you get a CP. And then if you don't get that CP for the battle round, on your turn, you get to try again. So on both players' turns, you have 2 chances to get 1 CP for the battle round. So he's pretty reliably going to get you a CP every single turn. I've had a couple games where he hasn't got me any. So it's just law of averages. Some games he's going to roll like literally shit for those rolls. So I think the last battle report I played against Keevil, I didn't get any CP. So again, he's there to get you a CP for like 70 points. So he's definitely worth it. And he can give a +1 hit to a core unit or the Tollkeeper, which gets you or exploding 6s for units. So you can keep him within 6 inches of, a big 10-man Blight Lord unit, which gets, Tallyman exploding 6s, +1 to hit, and then they get the exploding 6s on your Contemptor Dread, which is, pretty cool as well. So he's a really, really good character that you're going to be seeing at almost 99.9% of the list. Let's go into this guy. We already mentioned him, but the Spawn. -1 leadership aura. That's really the only reason why I bring him, and he's 22 or 23 points. He's just a 1 spawn dude that can just hold a back objective, just be there. He's speed 7, so he's pretty quick. And that's really it. So if I run Terminators, I bring him just so I get that little combo going. So -1 leadership aura from him, and then the -4 if they kill a Terminator. So if you have an extra 25 points in the list, you can just bring this guy just to kind of be annoying and, keep a backfield objective from getting taken. Now this guy, Foul Blight Spawn. This guy is probably the most scariest dude you'll see on the tabletop. Anytime you are facing an opponent says, "Where's your Blight Spawn?" And I go, "I'm not running one today." They're like, "You're a fucking idiot." So this guy has an insanely good flamer. He's the one that has the flamer on the backpack, big thingy. So the Foul Blights one, he has his special relic, which anything within 6 inches counts as not charging. So it's an aura. You can extend that aura in Ferryman. So you can extend the aura to being within 12 inches. So it extends any aura that you have by 6 inches. So he can have a 12-inch bubble of no charges. Now, when I say no charges, they still get the charge, but they don't count as charging. So for a lot of Marine armies, they don't get the +1 attack or +1 AP or whatever it may be. Like there's a lot of armies out there, especially Eldar, that the Banshees, I think if they charge, they no fight last or fight last and then no Overwatch. So since they don't count as charging, you still get to fight before the opponent because you don't have that fight last ability. So a lot of cool tricks that this guy can stop the opponent from doing. And also, since they don't count as charging, Defender goes first. So let's say he's surrounded by, the 10-man Terminator unit, your other character, the other Terminators in the same unit. So he's basically just up in here, right? He's got a fucking 12-inch aura, which is all the way, you can't even see, all the way out to here. That doesn't count as charging. So what you can do is you can keep this guy kind of safe all the way in the back and then just measure out 12 inches. So you're at least like 1 inch beyond the guy's base. So you're an inch and a half beyond their base. So that way, no matter what, they're not going to be able to charge your front line because of the 12-inch aura. So he doesn't have to be all the way up front. You can still keep him back and be pretty safe, and then they still can't count as charging. So this guy with the Ferryman build, he's very deadly. I usually put the Warlord trait, I believe, for the +1 wound and can only wound him on 4s, because if this guy dies, that whole build is kind of null and void. So you got to make sure that he tries to stay alive and keep him safe. But beyond that, he's got a fucking deadly flamer. So you spend 5 points so that we can reroll his flamer shots, but he gets D6 shots with a reroll. Strength 8, because that extra upgrade gets you +1 strength, and I believe it's AP 3, 2 damage. So strength 8, AP 3, 2 damage, Marine killer with this little guy. So he flamers pretty hardcore with this thing. So lastly about this guy, he's one of our most expensive models on the table because he does so much. He has a fight last ability. So anything within 3 inches, now you can't extend this. You can't extend it to 6, to 9, to whatever. It's only within 3. But you can pile in, right? If somebody's within 3 inches, let's say they charge in, they're still within 3 inches, he can pile in and make that unit fight last. Or if he's already in the fight, he can target a unit to fight last, and then your unit gets to go before everybody else, so they can kill that unit that's closest to him, and then you can go from there. So he's got to fight last, doesn't count as charging, really good flamer, just a scary dude. So anytime this guy's on the battlefield, people are looking to kill him as soon as possible. So you have to keep him very protective as much as possible. So I like to combi this guy, and Tallyman. Like these 3 elite slots are very, very good. In Arks of Omen, you don't really have an issue bringing them, but in a lot of lists, if you have, I believe, a Lord, you can actually bring 1 or 3 of these guys for no Force Orc slot. I think it's 1 or 2 of them. You can bring them as a no Force Orc slot, so they don't count as an Orc slot, like an elite choice in your army list. So that's a way that you can get these guys in pretty easily, because we have a lot of good elites in the army. So, and then we already talked about our Contemptor Dread. He's a cool model. He's got the 6s mortal wounds on the thing. I think it's like 16 shots, 8 shots each. You can do a shit ton of combi weapons on this guy, like any type of variation. But usually you see the mortal wound weapon or the heavy bolters, so that way you can turn them into plague weapons. And this guy's like super. He's a 3D print, but he's super like cool Death Guard 3D print model. So I got to paint him up. He looks really cool. I'm going to use him in the next battle report. So you guys can definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be awesome. All right. Let's go over these guys. Fast Tech. So we got 2 variations of this thing. I will try and show you this the best I can. So at the bottom here, he's got zombies that are counting as the flesh mowers. So they're basically just strung onto him in the back, and they're going to be flesh mower. So this guy is the flesh mower that gets 12 attacks, speed 10, strength 7, -2, 2 damage. So again, with armor contempt going away, this guy just munches Marines. Marines having a 5-up save. Even Terminators having a 4-up save, without a storm shield, but a 4-up save, 2 damage is really scary to look into. So strength 7, most Marines are going to go down to toughness 3, so he's wounding on 2s. Now again, all the plague weapons in the army get to reroll 1s to wound. So he's wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. He doesn't get any bonuses. He doesn't get to like reroll or anything like that. But he's speed 10, so he has fly, so he can fly over a lot of buildings, people, stuff like that. Usually kind of put him up against a wall. Turn 1, you can advance him turn 1, and then all of a sudden turn 2, he's hopping out 10 inches and charging something. Or what's really cool about this guy is the 1 CP that he can actually heroic 6 inches. So I like to combi actually Mortarion with him, because if Mortarion's here, you can actually put this guy right behind Mortarion, so that way when you heroic 6, you basically measure out to be within 6 inches of whatever charged Mortarion. This guy is now heroicing into the battle, so he can do something and try and protect Mortarion a little bit better. So he's kind of a little mini bodyguard with Mortarion, or really any unit that you want to do it with. So let's say you have a little, Terminator squad that deep struck in. This guy kind of runs over just to kind of be, within 6 inches of whoever charges it. So you can kind of put him like back here. So at least you have an extra 4 or 5 inches in front of you. So that way they have to charge really far to get to him. Or if they get to him, they have to be over here to not get heroic intervene. So basically heroic, fight, kill a bunch of dudes, and then get an extra 3 inches after you kill that unit. So 9 wounds, which is crazy. He's got a 5-up demon save, -1 damage, which is super important. But yeah, these guys are 115 points and well worth every point for these guys. So this is definitely one of the coolest units that we can bring in the list. If you could bring 1 of them, definitely. If you could bring 2 of them, awesome. If you bring 3 of them, fuck yeah. But I think having at least 1 in every list should be clutch, like key, I think. So Flesh Mower, Blight Drone, awesome. This guy is new. So this is modeled with Plague Spears, but it's supposed to have the Heavy Blight Launcher, because the Heavy Blight Launcher is 6 shots, -3, 2 damage. I think it's like 36-inch range too. So it's really far shots. We didn't really look at that because of Armor Contempt, and this guy was just so good. But with Fleeing Vectors being so good now as a secondary, this being able to shoot things from 36 inches away is very reliable to get your Fleeing Vectors off. So you can have this, the Plague Burst Crawler, this guy with the Heavy Bolters, anything that shoots far with a Plague Weapon, you're going to be able to combi that to get Fleeing Vectors. Killing 7 models and them being a Plague Weapon, you're able to get that probably turn 1 and turn 2. So usually you don't want to try and wait till turn 3 to get secondaries. So being able to have long, far range shooting, pretty reliable shooting, to kind of have them die to a plague weapon, and let's say they fail because they're cultists or orcs or whatever, you can get basically 15 with Fleeing Vectors on orcs probably by turn 2, if not turn 3. So again, the Heavy Blight Launcher is definitely something to try in some of your lists. If you want to go both of them, 1 melee, 1 Blight Launcher, so that way they can help each other out. If they get close, this guy just heroics to help out. And he's not, I think he's got an AP2 1 damage, little bite, no, or whatever, with him as well. So this is a cool combo. They're both same points because the weapons are free. I think because the weapons weren't free, that's why you didn't bring the Blight Launcher. You just brought the Flesh Mower because it was only 5 points, but now everything's free, so you kind of just bring the Flesh Mower. But again, try the Heavy Blight Launcher. It's definitely good. AP3 is huge, especially with Armor Contempt being gone, so that way they could just do a ton more damage. Marine Killers. All right, this is the, I haven't tried this guy out yet, but this is going to be in one of the lists that you guys will see coming up. This is the Forge World 3D print Blight Drone. So I've never ran him before. He has a gun. I think he's got a sprayer as well. I'm not going to talk a ton about him. I just know the combo with him is because he's speed 14. So he's speed 14. I think he has an assault weapon. But the combo with him, guys, if you've seen these in any of the lists, you'll know why, is you put the 2 CP strat on this guy, which basically puts any aura for your contagion on this guy, so that way he can then count as being that aura. So example, a little trick is you can put Ferric Blight on this guy for 2 CP, and then it counts as being turn 4, so within 9 inches, and then you can spend a power on him to extend that range by 6, which is a maximum 12 inches. So if this guy basically runs 14 behind a building, everything within 12 inches of that is -1 AP. So basically everything that shoots that army or engaged with that army, you're adding 1 extra AP to all of your weapons. So this Blight Launcher is now AP 4. This guy is AP 3. This Heavy Bolter, is AP 2, or the things become AP 1. The Melta is AP 5. The Blight Launcher is basically everything is now 1 extra AP. So 36-inch threat range. So no, 26-inch threat range. So it moves 14, you can advance it. So let's say you go D6, so let's say 4 inches, so it's 18 inches plus 12, 30 inches. So 30-inch range to get this guy, so that way your shooting army can just do -1 to everything within 12 inches of it. And hopefully it's protected because it's behind a wall, behind a building, and then it's just your kind of focus point to kind of put out that buff for 2 CP. So that's a good little combo. That's why you'll see this guy in a list. Again, I haven't tried it, but that's kind of the whole point of doing that, is so that way you can spend that 2 CP and get that huge aura around them. It doesn't have to be Ferric Blight, it could be Glooming Bloat. So let's say you put Glooming Bloat on the guy, he just runs up, and then everything within your army just can't be hit on. But you don't really need that for that guy. That's mainly like the shooting combo. To kind of help out with his things. So now his things are -1 instead of -0. Yeah. So that's that guy. Let's go over some tanks. So in my video, I talked about the Rhino. So the Rhino I still think is very good, and in Death Guard it's even better. So with Death Guard, here's my little custom Rhino from when I was 16. Put a lot of green stuff like tentacles and eyes and stuff on it. But you can put 10 guys in here, so 10 Plague Marines. They get out an extra 3 inches. So since our Plague Marine's only 5 inches, you basically get an extra 3-inch movement, so now your Plague Marines are 8 inches. I usually put a Rhino behind a wall, so that way you can get out and then move on the objective, get out and charge. You can put 2 5-mans in here, which are a lot easier to kind of maneuver. If you put a 10-man in here, you need to make sure they make their charge. So you need to make sure that they're going to have a 2 or 3 or 4-inch charge. Pretty reliable, because if you have a 10-man get out of a Rhino and then they have a 9-inch charge, let's say they fail, you have your 10-man Plague Marine unit just sitting in the open, not really doing anything. So you want to make sure that you're throwing either cheap 95 point Plague Marines out there to go kill a unit or kill a character or go take over an objective, and then put 5 another direction. So that's a good little combo with the Rhino, is one can go out one way, one can go another way. The unit behind it can then get into it for the next turn, or you can do the combo like we said earlier with the Plaguecaster starting in there, and then just running out like a kamikaze and just fucking throwing the Blight Launcher or the Plague Skull and Curse of Leper and Smite onto a character or unit, so he gets the extra 3-inch launching point. So Rhinos I definitely think are key. There's free weapons now. You can bring a Combi Melta and an extra Havoc Launcher on your Rhinos. So it's an assault weapon, so the Rhino can move up 12, advance, and then shoot the Combi weapon hitting on a 4, but still it's just an extra thing you can do with your Rhinos. The Havoc Launcher is not assault, but it's still an extra free weapon that you can be bringing on your Rhinos. So you can bring 1, maybe 2 if you really want to. I usually always have 1 in my list. Even if I'm running 20 Plague Marines, I'm definitely bringing 1, so that way those 20 have a lot more maneuverability, and it counts for endgame objectives for contagion range and being in different quarters. So Rhino is definitely key. This thingy. So I've never run this in a game. I think I ran it once. It was like the cheeky Epidemius, whatever the fuck his name is, and 9 of these guys. So they're all 3D printed. This thing's actually 3D printed, and I think it's the same size, same model, everything. So definitely came out really, really good. Meltaguns, missile launcher, 9 wounds, I think, which is ridiculous. -1 damage, toughness 7, just super expensive. So I believe 100 points for one of them. I gotta look it up. They're really expensive. They're really tanky. There's some pretty cool strats that they can heal. They can do crazy stuff in melee, like they can shoot their weapons in melee. Some of the weapons, I think their null or whatever, they can actually shoot it in melee. So if you want to run these guys now, what I would suggest is putting them into reserves. So they can then walk on turn 2 and be within the melter range, because it's a multi-melter. So now you have all these multi-melter shots within 12 inches. So you're getting D6 plus 2 plus the missiles and then the little sprayer. So they're really tanky unit, especially coming in from the sideboard, and you put them into something that can't really kill them pretty reliably. So that would be their thing. You don't want to keep them in combat because they have so much firepower. They're vehicles, so they can shoot in combat, but they're only going to be able to shoot whatever's in combat with them. So they're cool. Again, I don't have a lot of testing with them, but I usually do see probably 2 of them in some of the lists, because 200 points, you just kind of bring them. They're pretty quick for their size, and they just kind of come in from reserves and help out with blowing up some vehicles. So they don't, I think only their melee and their flare is the blight weapon. So the meltas and the missiles don't count for the flame vectors. You have to get into combat to do the +1 for the blight weapons. So these things are pretty cool. Again, not a ton of experience with them, but they're cheeky, right? So they're expensive, so you only need to buy really 1 to 3 of them. And who knows, maybe they'll be really, really good in 10th edition. Plague Brush Crawler. This thing is awesome. So every time I decide I want to take one out, I just put it back in. One of these guys in the backfield is super clutch. Let's say this is your backfield deployment zone. You can basically just camp this guy out, outside of 9 inches right here. So that way they can't deep strike in your backfield. It's sitting back here, launching mortars out of line of sight. It's -1 to hit. They get +1 to the cover save, but it's really good to kill chaff, like really crappy recruit or cultists or zombies or whatever is really easy to kill from afar, and they have low leadership, so that way it counts for fleeing vectors. If you have 2 of these guys camp out the backfield, they're just launching mortars to get that fleeing vectors for you a lot easier. So I was playing Keeble, and turn 1 I was able to get 6 points because I killed some cultists over there and then some cultists in the back, killed 7 models. One of the cultist units fleed, so I got 6 points just from my Plague Burst Crawlers. That's cool. They're toughness 8, -1 damage, 5 up invuln save. And they have the D6 cannon shot, which could do 1 CP, 3 damage, and everything within 3 inches takes 1 mortal wound. So it's a way to kind of get mortal wounds spread out. And then the entropy cannons on the side, they're AP4, D3 +3 damage. So that's our damage tank killing tanks. So, and then I think it's got a little slug gun up front. There's like 2 or 3 different guns you can put up front. But if you have line of sight on a unit, you don't suffer the penalty for the out of line of sight. So it's D6 shots, strength 8, AP2, 2 damage, plague weapons because they reroll 1s to wound. You can't buff it really at all. Like I wish you could, but you can't buff the Plague Burst Crawler really at all. So it's always going to be hitting on 3s or 4s if you can't see it. But you want to try and like peek the treads out a little bit, like behind a wall, so the treads can see whatever you're trying to shoot at. So that way you can, put all the shots into whatever you're trying to kill. If you kind of turn it around, put this thing out, a lot more people can see like the higher up on this side. So I usually kind of run them like backwards like this, so that we can stick the treads out so the treads can see whatever you're trying to shoot at. So that way you can put all the shots into whatever you're trying to see. And maybe a mortar goes over here to try and kill the chaff, and all the big heavy weapons go into whatever you want to shoot at. So the entropy cannons and the slug guns, and then the big mortar goes, somewhere else to get the fleeing vectors. So Plague Burst Crawlers, they're 145 points. They're cheap for what they do, and they're really, really tanky. Most people don't shoot at them unless they kill them specifically. Like if you're running a lot of demon engines, you might go against Grey Knights, and if I kill this, I get 3 points. Most of the time, you're not going to see that. So these things are cool. You could bring 1 almost on every single list, 2 if you really want to do a fire tower fleeing vector list for Death Guard. So there goes a spike. I think they're really cool for what they do and their point value. And they're super, super tanky. So that's really all I brought out. There's probably some other stuff that I might have missed, but again, this is what I've been running for the past 2 years, honestly. There's only like small things that might have changed here and there. But this is usually the list. What main thing, I'll go over the list. I'll post them in the description below, but here is my favorite list that I've been running. I'll read it to you off the thing. So it's a ferryman build. It has 40, here we go. So it's got 40 Plague Marines. But the 2 casters you're going to be bringing is the Demon Prince. He's got the Arch Contaminator and the Fergus Helm. So the Fergus Helm gives you the extra 3-inch aura. So the Malignant Plague Caster has the +1 strength and toughness and miasma for the powers. Foul Blight Spawn, he's in there as well. He's the one that basically the whole list is built around. He's got the Revolting Stetchbatch, which is 1 CPU, can extend the range to 12 inches. He's got the Vicious Death, which is that 5-point upgrade to reroll the Flamer. And Hulking Physique, that's the Warlord trait, where he gets +1 wound, so he's up to 5 wounds now. And you can only wound him on 4s, so that makes him a little bit more tankier. For the troops, we got 8 troops. So we have 1 10-man, the rest are 5-mans, and then we had 1 10 Plague Marine, or Poxwalkers. So 40 Plague Marines, 10, 20, 30, 40 Plague Marines with 10 Poxwalkers as well for 50 points. We have the Ballast Putrefier, which again, we went over a lot of stuff with this guy. 10 Blight Lord Terminators, so they have all the weapons we already went over. We have the Tallyman, Barebone just for the CP. We have the Bloat Drone with the Flesh Mower, again, really, really good for a melee unit. We have 1 Plague Burst Crawler, just for the Fleeing Vectors long shot. We have 1 Rhino with Commie Melt and Havoc Launcher. So it's a lot of troops, a lot of OBSEC, and a lot of defensive capability, so that way melee units cannot charge you or don't count as charging, so that way your Plague Marines can just murder whatever gets into combat with them. So that is the list. That's a really good ferryman list. The other list that you see with Mortarion, which will come up with the battle port, I repeat, probably this week, is going to be Mortarion. So Mortarion has a Plague Caster, another Plague Caster. The one Plague Caster has the Plague Skull, Gifts of Plagueis, and the Curse of the Leper. The other one is Miasma and Putrid Vitality. 7 troops, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 5-man Plague Marine units, 1 10-man Poxwalker unit, Ballast Putrefier with the Ferric Blight. So everything within the Contagion range gets -1 AP, which is a really good combo. Tallyman, Chaos Spawn, Bloat Drone with a Blight Launcher, Heavy Blight Launcher, and Bloat Drone with a Flesh Mower. So 2 Bloat Drones, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, a Rhino, and Mortarion. So that's a really, really cool, fun list. It's kind of similar to the Ferryman, except a little bit more damage output. And then finally the Anoxable, which I'll post this as well. This is going to be the one with a really good, it's a very tiny list, very skill to play this type of list. But Plague Caster, with the Ferric Blight and the Plague Skull. Then we have Typhus with Miasma and +1 strength and toughness. 4 units of Plague Marines, 1 10-man, 3 5-man. The Ballast Putrefier with Arch Contaminator and Fergus Helm. The Contemptor Dread with the Twin Volkite, as well as the Missile Launcher. Destral Terminators, 4 of them. Tallyman with the Toll Keeper. Bloat Drone with the Flesh Mower. Plague Burst Crawler, and 2 Rhinos with the Commie Meltas and Havoc Launcher, and then we have 2 War Dogs. So I didn't talk about that because you'd ever not really been running it too much with Death Guard, but 2 War Dog Executioner Squadrons. So that's a little cheeky thing if you guys want to look into that or join the Discord, definitely ask some questions. But I'm going to be testing that out in the next video coming up. So hopefully this helps you guys out, whether you're new to Death Guard or have been playing Death Guard for a while. Hopefully you guys get to see this before 10th edition comes out. I'm going to be doing updates for all the armies that we play on the channel with all the new 10th edition rules. There's going to be a lot of how-to guides for 10th edition, kind of teach us the changes and what's going to be new, especially in the competitive scene. If you guys are new and you really just like the environment of the competitive scene, we're not strictly hardcore like some other channels out there. We really like the friendly environment, but also winning some more games. So there's going to be a lot of videos on the channel that's going to be teaching you how to get better at 40k, whether it just be the specific armies that you're playing, because I play about 4 or 5 armies right now, but it's mainly learning the core rules in the core rule book. If you learn those core rules, you're going to get a lot better at the game a lot faster than some people you're playing against. If you're going to be playing against somebody, make sure you're learning, make sure you're asking questions, making sure they're not just fucking steamrolling you or you're steamrolling them, because there's really no point of a game at that point. You don't really get to test out anything if you're playing somebody like that. So definitely ask questions, join the Discord, join the Patreons if this really helps you out, or if you want to see a little bit more. I always take recommendations from our Patreons, but there's a lot of stuff coming up. So I got some cool things I could show you guys, which just came in the other day. Hopefully this isn't too shiny, but we got some stickers. So the first 40k Dirtbags sticker is coming in. This is the one with all of the characters on it. This one's actually really cool. We got Abaddon, the Despoiler. These are all, I forget what the fuck you call them, but they're like the really big face characters. I actually paid somebody to draw all these for us. We got Karn the Betrayer. He's fucking awesome. We got our boy emo guy cutting himself, hates all of his kin. He's my favorite. And then we got Typhus for our Death Guard people. So Typhus is one of the biggest stickers we got. So if you guys are interested in getting the stickers, head over to Discord so we can post on there. We're going to be doing objective markers with 3D6 Wargaming. They're actually sponsoring us, so that's going to be really cool. As well as dice. 1,700 dice are coming in tomorrow. By the time you see this video, they're already here. So if you guys are interested in dice, definitely head over to Discord, and Patreons get a 10% discount on everything that we sell. So guys, I appreciate it. Had to give that little shout out. Thank you for clicking on the video. Hopefully you guys go watch another video. That'll definitely help out with the channel grow. And mainly we want to get up to 5K subscribers as soon as possible. We're definitely on par for that as soon as, like, really quick. We just got 50 subscribers in the past 2 days just from these past 2 videos. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if I messed something up, what we can change, what we can improve on, and definitely check out the last battle report, because that was really, really cool, and a lot changed with the camera angle. So good luck, and we'll see you in another video soon.